So, good evening, everybody. It's nice to have you all here with us tonight in our third edition of Tush Talks. And tonight we are going to be talking about self-care for the cancer patient. So with us tonight, we have Ilene Shiller. Ilene is a program manager at Wellspring Cancer Support Foundation. In her capacity as a program manager, she meets one-on-one with clients through the Money Matters program and leads the Returning to Work Wellness at Work and brain fog support and education programs. And Ilene is also involved in patient and caregiver peer support programs at Wellspring. And Ilene holds a Master's of Social Work degree from the University of Toronto. And we're really pleased to have you with us tonight, Ilene, to talk about self-care for the cancer patient. So before Ilene gets started tonight, we're going to do a little bit different. Ilene has a great presentation for us that her and I are going to kind of, discuss. But she has some slides, which is great because for those of us who are visual learners like myself, it's very helpful. And but before we get started with the presentation, Ilene wants to walk us through a relaxation exercise that will help all of us kind of get into the zone and focus. So I will turn the mic over to you, Ilene, for that guided. Thank you.
Thank you for the intro, and thank you so much for having me speak tonight. So I thought, what better way to start a self-care presentation than we all indulge in a little bit of self-care, and I should have watched myself. It's not indulgence, which we're going to see throughout the course of tonight. But what I want you to do is just make sure that you're in a comfortable position. Really, really settle into your chair. Knowing you can shift your weight at any time, just find a comfortable position and let your eyes soften. If you're comfortable, you can close your eyes or just gaze at the floor. And really, really try to take notice how it feels to be in the room that you're in. I want you to let your attention lightly scan through your body. Are there places of tension, of holding? How about the places where we often hold tightness, like our shoulders, our jaw, our back? For now, I just want you to notice without judgment. And let yourself focus on any thoughts you're carrying, that busyness in your mind, the distractions. Noticing that thought stream, which so often takes our attention back into the past or forward into the future, but rarely stays right here, right now, in this moment. And it's at this point that I want you to start turning your attention to the rhythm of your breath. The breath is going to be your place of focus. I want you to let yourself feel the gentle waves of breath as they move through your body. Notice the breath as it enters through your nose, the way it's warmed and humidified as it swirls down into your lungs. Feeling how the body opens up to the breath as if to receive it as a gift. The full roundness of the breath, followed by the sense of release as you feel the breath roll all the way out of the body. And let yourself follow the exhalation all the way, not cutting it short on the way out. And perhaps, if it feels right, feel the pause between the breaths and the sense of calm that many people feel here. The next breath rolls in as it's needed, and you're supported in the breath. Continue to focus on the rhythm of your breath. And perhaps you're noticing a certain softening around your face, your eyes relaxing, your jaw releasing, your head effortlessly balanced and poised. Feeling your shoulders relax each time you exhale. Feeling them drop again and again and again. Letting the breath almost massage you from the inside out. You may be noticing a warming energy gathering in your hands, a sense of letting go. And then the breath becomes more and more comfortable as you feel your belly releasing into the breath, becoming a partner in the rhythm of the breath as the belly gently rises and gently falls. Let your back soften into the support of the chair so that you feel held and cradled in this moment. All the way down the spine, feeling held and supported. Feeling your shoulders relax with each exhalation. Feeling them drop again and again and again. And let the sense of softness extend all the way down to the very soles of your feet. And perhaps you can feel a sense of warmth and energy around your feet, just as you can in the palms of your hands. Letting each breath take you deeper and deeper into a sense of warmth, comfort, and safety. Knowing that just by taking a few deep breaths, you can reconnect with this place of warmth, comfort, and safety. And now with soft eyes, gently returning to the screen.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's time for everything. You need a nap now.
I got into the zone, Ilene.
Yeah, no, you get into the zone, but I like that one because that's just an example of just something very, very short and sweet that you can do sitting at a desk, sitting on your couch, sitting in your bed, just taking that 3-4 minutes to just focus on your breath and relax your body.
So it's a very somatic exercise, and it's something that really puts you in touch with your body. And that's kind of what they say in dealing with stress and anxiety, is to really ground yourself, right? I mean, that's the basics of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. So do we have sleepers here? Is everybody still awake?
I hope everybody is still awake.
Between the heat and this exercise, I think we're all ready for a nap. But that's great. So, I mean, this is a perfect example, as you said, of something that we can do to sort of guide ourselves through, whether it's doing this as a practice before we get up in the morning, doing this in a stressful moment. It could really be incorporated at any point of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, there's so many places you can find these type of relaxation exercises. There's a ton of them on YouTube. There's a lot of free apps. I like Insight Timer or Calm. There's a number of them, and just taking that, quick few minutes just to ground yourself and focus can really, really, sort of make you feel better, lower your stress. Yeah.
And probably also, increase productivity if you're at work, or, you're trying to get stuff done and you're sort of all over the place. It probably kind of heightens the focus. on what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Those couple of minutes can just add to your energy level. And as you say, make you more productive, in all facets of your life. So
Sure.
well worth the work.
Okay. Didn't feel like work though, but
No, I know. Exactly.
So yeah, we're talking about, self-care, particularly for cancer patients. And we know that, we hear a lot about self-care these days, obviously. It's a big catchphrase. And, I think a lot of people kind of wonder, like, what does that mean? Does that mean going to the spa for the day? Does that mean, so, it's very unique to everyone, but, essentially the goal of self-care really is to provide, or tonight's self-care talk is to provide
No,
people
heights, no.
is
No.
to sorry, we're just going to mute this. Mute.
You just muted yourself.
I did. So the goal really is to provide the patients that have come to us tonight and the caregivers to manage stress, provide them with tools to manage stress throughout the day, at any point, whether it's in a treatment room, whether it's, you've just gotten a diagnosis and you're flooded with stress, really at any point. So this is what we're here to do tonight, correct?
Absolutely. And we'll talk about how the benefits will extend beyond just stress management, that it really does play a vital role in well-being.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I know that you have this lovely presentation that you've brought to us. So we'll, sort of guide our discussion accordingly. So I guess, maybe we want to start with the first slide, just to bring that up. And, really kind of ask you, how do we define stress? Like, how do you define as a social worker? How do you define stress?
Well, if we go back to the basics, it's really just, it's how we respond physically or mentally to some external cause, which we call a stressor. So, very, very basic definition, but what comes with it is just a very interesting concept. And that's what we have heard of, our fight or flight stress response. And that's what happens within our bodies when we encounter something stressful in our lives. And, as you see on the slide, we have a physiological reaction. Our body reacts to what's going on around us when it's something that is scary to us. And what happens is our bodies release a number of different hormones, and they prepare our body to either stay and deal with whatever is threatening us, or in some cases to run away to safety. And that's going to depend on the specific circumstance. So if I have a fear of dogs and there's a large dog running towards me, my fight or flight stress response may tell me to, start heading in the opposite direction. And when that fight or flight stress response gets triggered, it may increase my heart rate a little bit. I may end up getting flushed. My pupils may dilate. Some people rapidly breathe. Some people shake or tremble. So a lot of different reactions. But the very important thing to know about our fight or flight stress response is how important it is. It's what allows us to deal with the stress that we come in contact with on a day-to-day basis, not just strict danger, but stress that we come into contact with. And that's what lets our body respond in the right way. And we need that fight or flight stress response. We need that when we're writing an exam or we're doing a presentation at work. We need that little bit of adrenaline to get us through. And in situations where we are faced with something life-threatening, that's going to cause us to survive. It plays a critical role in our survival.
Right. And I mean, we're hardwired, right, Ilene? I mean, this is, we're biologically hardwired because our ancestors, it was fight or flight. It was like I'm being chased by.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was a matter of survival. And we continue to have this because we continue to need it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the key thing to remember with our fight or flight stress response is it's not something that is meant to go on, constantly. Two things are going to make that response stop. Number one is the stressor disappears. Okay, so in my case, the dog is out of the picture, or I've developed coping mechanisms that help me deal with that response and that dissipate the physiological reaction. So I see the dog and I know I'm going to take 5 deep breaths and, it's going to alleviate that response.
So you're conditioning your system to deal with that. So if you have a stress in your life, for example, that's ongoing, you're a caregiver, and you need to be there, you need to remember medications, and this allows you to go, okay, like, get me into that zone. What's my ritual to do that I can focus, that I'm not sort of, in the midst of panic, if something happens, that I can deal with it. So these coping mechanisms are incredibly important, but I also know that they're not evident, right? It's hard in amidst a difficult and challenging situation to, have that presence of mind or to have that discipline to do that. So I'm not sure if this is your next slide, and maybe, but what happens when we get into a situation where this is chronic, where we don't necessarily have the coping, or when the stressor doesn't stop? How much stress is too much stress?
Absolutely. And I think that as we're all gathered here tonight, stress and cancer, there is something that is a pretty continuous stressor. And if you're feeling stressed, you've got a scan coming up, or, a doctor's appointment, that's completely normal to feel stressed about it. That's your brain doing what it's supposed to do. You've activated your fight or flight response. So it's a very logical reaction to a stressful situation. But what sometimes happens, especially when you're going through the cancer journey, is you're dealing with appointment after appointment, scans, waiting for test results, dealing with treatment side effects. So what happens sometimes is your fight or flight response just gets activated and activated and activated, and we can't always control the stressor. It's out of our control. And so what happens is we start developing those mental and physical symptoms of stress. And again, it's a stressor that doesn't dissipate, and or we just haven't yet found the right tools to help us deal with it. And when we have a stressor that's continuously present, or we don't have the way to deal with it, we haven't learned that yet, we end up with chronic stress.
Okay. So so let's talk about that, because as you said, with us, we have people at all stages of the disease, some newly diagnosed, some very much in treatment, some post-treatment. But, once and of course, people who are, metastatic, for example, where, the treatments are nowhere, no end in sight, really. And it's just sort of like from one scan to the next, waiting to hear, okay, have I responded to this treatment? Okay, well, here's 3 months more of it. This would certainly qualify as chronic stress, right?
Absolutely.
You're constantly in that fear pattern. And, so how does that work? Like what can chronic stress, then create in our lives? What does that look like?
So it's one of those things where it's going to be different things for different people. The types of symptoms, the intensity of the symptoms is going to vary from person to person. But as you'll see, they're sort of grouped into 4 categories. So stress can affect us cognitively. So some people find they just can't concentrate when they're feeling stressed. They have anxious or racing thoughts. They're worrying all the time. You may also have emotional symptoms. So that's where your mood's going to be impacted. A lot of people report that they feel much more irritable. They just feel easily overwhelmed. those type of emotional symptoms come up. Some people feel stress physically, stomach issues, aches or pains in their bodies. And for some people, there are behavioral symptoms as well. So it may affect, for example, your appetite. It may, if you're feeling low, may make you sleep more than you usually sleep. You may develop some nervous habits. So again, it can be the whole gamut, and it doesn't mean you're going to be impacted by every single solitary symptom, but there are a host of symptoms that may impact you if you're dealing with chronic stress.
So it also looks like, dealing with chronic stress can ultimately lead to major depressive episodes, where a lot of these symptoms seem to be symptoms of depression, change in eating habits, change in sleeping habits, isolating oneself, neglecting responsibilities, using unhealthy coping mechanisms, all these types of things really do qualify, I guess, as, symptoms of depression. So chronic stress affects the mind, it affects the body. We know there's a huge mind-gut connection, of course. So that makes a lot of sense that you see these types. Are certain people more prone to these? Like, I guess if you're anxious, does that make you more prone to a certain type, maybe an emotional response versus?
Absolutely. I think somebody that suffers from anxiety may be more prone to things acting as stressors to them, for sure.
Yeah.
And same with depression. I think there's sort of a bit of a circle. The more stressors that are impacting you, the higher your anxiety gets, and the more you're prone to depression. But it can work the other way. Maybe perhaps people that are prone to depression and anxious are more susceptible to stressors. So I think everything is interconnected, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do we want to move to the next slide?
Yeah.
Perhaps?
So now I want to sort of bring things to, okay, we understand what, all the things that you're dealing with. And I want to now turn the focus to self-care, because it's known self-care can help you reduce stress. So it's one of those things that is going to help you dissipate your stressors. Okay. So you can't always get rid of the things that are making you stressful, but there are things you can do to help lessen the impact of the stress. But, I also want to highlight as we move into what self-care is and what it can look like, that there are so many other benefits of self-care that you can see on the slide. And I think here that, one of the points I raise is that, cancer is something that's primarily out of your control. Its demands, so the treatment, the side effects, the appointments, the tests can make you feel helpless, can make you feel frustrated. But there are things you can do through self-care that can help you regain that sense of control. So you can't change the cancer, but you can make decisions about how you care for yourselves. So I think of self-care sort of as one way to get back in the driver's seat to a certain extent. And through self-care, you get that opportunity to pay attention to your needs, to strengthen your reserves and preserve, possibly even build resilience.
Yeah. And it's actually, so it's interesting. You're talking about pretty much taking the power back, right? Taking control, a bit of control back. We're very careful with the type of, wording that we use around it, because, even the word prevention, we talk about like cancer prevention. I mean, that it's a misnomer. We cannot prevent cancer. It will happen if it's going to happen. We can try and reduce risk, but essentially a lot of this is beyond control of the patient, of anybody. And when you are diagnosed, you lose that control, and you also feel that, you're helpless. And by bringing, and you don't really trust your body. Like, you end up kind of losing trust in your body, because here is this vessel that has, taken you this far. And then all of a sudden it's kind of gone like, okay, so now I'm taking over. So self-care rituals really, in fact, create a better relationship. They help you sort of reestablish that connection with your body.
Exactly.
And that's really important for when you're going through treatments, and basically you're giving up your body to the medical team, and you're saying, okay, do what you have to do with it, right?
Exactly.
It's finding that reconnection.
Yep. Yep. And that's exactly what it is. It's that reconnection. It's finding whatever it is that's going to help you function in a more healthy way, and most importantly, enhance your well-being. However that looks for you. So I think self-care is a very personal thing. It's finding, and as you see, it's multidimensional. It might be a bunch of different things, lots of different categories I'm going to show you. But the bottom line is that you're trying to improve, have your hand in improving your health to the extent you can, and enhancing your well-being. And it can look like a lot of different things. I think we typically, think about self-care, as sort of, going for a walk or maybe spending a day at a spa, but there are so many different types. There's the typical physical ones. So those are, those activities that are going to enhance your physical well-being, and very importantly for cancer patients, may help you alleviate or reduce side effects. So again, that could be just going for a walk, a short walk, even taking a bath, getting a massage, taking a nap. All things that help the physical being. You can also focus on your emotional and psychological self-care, and that's where we take those steps to connect with our emotions and process them in a healthy way. So that could be journaling, that could be talking to a therapist, that could be meditation. So again, it can look like so many different things. Spiritual self-care, so that's caring for your sort of inner self, nurturing your spirit. And for some people that may be religious, but there are so many other ways to engage in spiritual self-care: taking a walk in nature, doing some yoga. Social self-care is an important one. Those are, any activities that nurture our relationships with others. So having coffee with a friend, organizing a family dinner.
Support groups.
Support groups, absolutely. And also the other side of that. So maybe taking charge of the relationships that we have, especially during a cancer journey, and maybe evaluate those that might be, not serving us well, might be more toxic. So I think it works both ways. And then lastly, practical self-care, which I never really thought of it as self-care, but it's really when we sort of focus on the core aspects of our life, so that we make our lives run better. So practical self-care is that feeling you get when you organize your spice drawer, or your closet, or when you come up with a budget for the month. Those things that just make you feel organized, and they enhance our well-being as well.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah.
So my question is, if we know that these things are so good for us, we all, we're all sitting here nodding our heads going, yep, I need to do more of that. This is great. This is so important. This is going to contribute to my emotional, my physical health. But then how come so many of us neglect this?
That's the thing. We know the benefits of self-care. We know there are so many different ways that, we can engage to make ourselves feel better, enhance our well-being. But these barriers, real life comes up, I guess we could say. And sometimes realistically, you're having a day where you're feeling a lot of symptoms and side effects, and self-care is off the table, that can happen. I think for some of us, lack of motivation may be a barrier to self-care. It's very hard sometimes for, somebody to put on the running shoes in the morning and go for a walk. We know that life pulls us in a bunch of different directions. So we may simply feel we don't have the time, or that other responsibilities just have to trump our self-care. And we'll talk about this a little bit, later in the presentation, but guilt. We just have this guilt associated with taking care of ourselves. So we'll focus on that a little bit, because that's a tough one for a lot of people.
It is. It
Yep.
is. Yeah, I mean, I think we're all a bit guilty, no pun
Yeah.
intended,
Yeah.
of feeling that guilt. We're sort of these altruistic beings, more or less taught to take care of, those around us. But like even when you're on a plane, right? I always use this example when you're on the
Yeah.
plane and they're talking to you about safety precautions, and they're saying before you put the mask on your child, or you put it on yourself, right? Because you can't be of any help to anybody unless you're in that good state. So, it's definitely an important reminder.
Exactly. And because we know that, we've got to take steps to deal with the barriers. And again, it's one of those things, it's sort of easier said than done, but it's doable. And I think that the key with overcoming those barriers, we know the importance of self-care, but we have to find a way to make our intention. So I know I need to practice self-care into actually practicing self-care. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a model to help you do that. And it's something that, you can sort of go through as a way to, I think, keep self-care more at the top of your to-do list. And I call it the ABCD squared model of self-care. So I'll go through each of these in turn, but it's appealing activities, benefits, cutting other activities, dead ends, and detours. So I'll go through each one. So appealing activities. This is sort of intuitive, but we don't always listen to this. And I think that just because your best friend it likes running, it doesn't mean you're going to. It's finding that activity that is going to bring you a little bit of joy, a little bit of happiness, something that's going to just click for you. And I think we know that activity when we experience it, and it may mean we have to try a few different things till we get to that. And we have to also realize, that you maybe have some physical limitations. So you have to make sure you choose something that is realistic and safe for you. It's also got to be something that's accessible and convenient. So if you, live in a certain climate, that may affect what activities you pick during certain seasons, things like that. So appealing is the big one. That's what sort of gets us going down the path of finding the right activity. And then we have got to make sure that the activity has benefits for us. We are creatures that like some positive reinforcement. So we have to choose our activities that provide some sort of benefit for us. Because when we experience that benefit being, increased energy, maybe it's making us feel calmer, maybe it's helping our sleep, it's going to push us to do more. Again, it gives us that little reinforcement. So again, try and find things that you can associate having a benefit from, and that's going to help encourage you to do that activity.
And help also create the habit, right? Because if we're
Absolutely.
getting something out of it, right, there's a benefit, we're going to go back for more.
Exactly. And making it a habit is a huge part of, ensuring that that you keep undertaking that activity. Yeah. So, and then it all comes down to that, time management and all the other competing demands we have in our life. And the one thing is, if this is your to-do list, it is not about putting self-care on, stacking self-care onto that to-do list. That's just going to add stress. It's just adding one more thing. It's really, really cutting other activities, streamlining other activities, shifting your schedule around to make sure that it doesn't become a burden, that it fits nicely on your calendar for the week. And that involves taking sort of a hard, look at your calendar, at your organizational systems, enlisting help from family members and friends, just to make sure that everything sort of fits in nicely. And, self-care doesn't end up being the first thing that gets tossed off of that to-do list. Right. So it's got to be just as important as everything else, because again, the benefits of it.
And again, you're alluding to a lot of different, activities and mentioning, Ilene, that it's very particular, very individual to each of us. And so, a self-care ritual doesn't have to be a 2-3 hour ordeal. It can really be like we saw at the beginning of the session, a 5-minute kind of pause where you're
Yeah.
focusing on you. It could be a bike ride, it could be a walk, around the block, it could be a whole bunch of different things. So that essentially, if you feel like you need this, or you could benefit, it could be a daily thing. For some people, it's a weekly thing.
Absolutely. And you may find you need different types of self-care, at different points, like for some people, maybe you need that 5 minutes of concentration to play Wordle in the morning. Maybe for somebody it's, you're not feeling great and it's binge watching a show on the weekend, so it can really be anything.
You just made my day by telling me that binge watching is a self-care ritual.
Well, sometimes we just need it. We need to
see the guilt is gone now.
Exactly. Sometimes we just need that, take all the distractions, take the distractions away and just focus on, on Netflix. So absolutely. So it's finding that sort of sweet spot in your calendar on your to-do list so that it stays there. But I think as part of that is, again, it comes back to, again, we have these activities we like, we know the benefits, we found a good place in our calendar. But as I said, real life happens and things get in the way. And it's those barriers that we talked about earlier, not feeling well, not feeling motivated, other demands on our time. But I think the important thing with barriers to help you overcome them is trying to recognize what can get in the way of your self-care in advance. And that helps you do a little bit of planning and preparing yourself so that if some sort of dead end or obstacle or barrier gets in the way, you have a way to deal with that. And the way to deal with that is going to be your detours. So those are the plans that you're going to think about in advance to overcome any barriers that may get in there, get in your way. So again, maybe your schedule has to be changed around a little bit, because some other commitment came up. You may again have to ask for support from family and friends. If a babysitter fell through, maybe somebody else has to, step in. Alternative self-care strategies. So if you had intended to go for a walk, but you woke up and you're feeling a lot of pain or fatigue, maybe then you have to, turn on YouTube and find a relaxation video, or do some chair yoga or, that type of thing. So have those alternatives that are ready if things come up. If you lack motivation, there's nothing better than joining a group or a program, even like when you pay the cost for those programs, that motivates us to, hey, I've registered, I paid my fee. That's a good little push for us. Or a self-care buddy, knowing that you take your morning walks with a neighbor or a friend. Those are all things that can sort of help you get around those obstacles. So just, things to think about. And again, things to think about in advance. So when those things happen, you're able to deal with it. Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. And then the big one, I like to sort of close off with this one because whenever I talk about self-care, as I mentioned at the beginning, with someone dealing with cancer, the issue of guilt comes up, and that's a big barrier. They feel bad, and it all comes down to, I think many of us have difficulty giving ourselves permission to take care of ourselves. There's this guilt associated with self-care, and I think it's because for a lot of us, we feel, we're the caregivers. We don't want people taking care of us. It's just a role that we're not used to. But you have to remember and say it to yourself over and over again that self-care isn't selfish. It's not self-indulgent. you know, and that can involve, you know, it's hard for a lot of people to say no, but sometimes you have to say no to other commitments. And, you know, I like this notion that we would give others the advice to take care of themselves. So we have to grant ourselves that same permission, you know, to take care of ourselves. And I think, as you said with your airplane example, that when we take care of ourselves, we're a better patient, we're a better family member, we're a better friend, we're a better worker. So, you know.
Yeah, it's very true because, you know, we can't operate from an empty tank.
No, exactly.
And, you know, and these rituals really are meant to refill the tank. They're meant to focus the attention on us and, you know, regenerate parts of ourselves that we need in order to be that, you know, mother. I mean, or to be that that spouse or that employee. Without that, you know, you run on empty, and I mean that eventually causes a burnout, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah, yeah. And you know, you mentioned burnout, and so you know, I always like to alert people that self-care is amazing, and it definitely helps with the stress management and the other things, but you also have to realize that there are some times where stress unfortunately is just too much for us. And I always like to let people know that there are resources out there. A good starting point is always your family doctor, because they can make the appropriate referrals, and some can actually help you and do counseling themselves. A number of the cancer centers will have a psychosocial oncology department, or will otherwise have psychologists and psychiatrists and social workers available. There are likely cancer support centers available online, as well as you know, in your neighborhood or city. And from COVID, the governments have put a lot of free online resources. They've made them available. I mentioned some that are available in Ontario. So Bounce Back, Mind Beacon, and Ability CBT. Most of them are free. You just have to watch. There might be little add-ons that where there's a fee. And another Wellness Together Canada is a resource available throughout Canada. So just I like people to know about these resources, because there is, you know, help out there.
It's important, right? Because, you know, when you're going through the cancer trajectory, it's heavy, obviously, focus on the physical, on healing the physical body, but what the mind and spirit are going through is, you know, equally as traumatic, and the scars run deep. You know, the impact is big, and this is the part that doesn't tend to get addressed. So, you know, community organizations often, you know, those types of concerns spill over into community organizations. That's sort of how I see the role of, you know, what we do at CCC, what you do at Wellspring. And I'm going to ask you, you know, sort of what are some of the initiatives, because Wellspring has a wealth of programming and, you know, not just self-care, but, you know, just engagement, as you said, purposeful engagement to connect people to one another, to themselves. So what are some of these initiatives that you have at Wellspring going on these days?
I'll tell you a little bit. So for those that don't know about Wellspring, we're a cancer support organization, and we serve patients with any type of cancer, any stage in their treatment journey, as well as their family and caregivers. And we offer programs at no cost. There's no membership fee, and the programs are all professionally led. So that's sort of our starting point. And in the GTA, there are 2 physical centers, one on the campus of Sunnybrook Hospital, and one in Oakville. That's our Birmingham Gilgan House. And you can also see on the screen, we have affiliated centers in other parts of Ontario and in Alberta as well. We have started offering a small roster of programs again in centers. So there are some, and when you go to wellspring.ca, you'll see what's in center and what's online. And so what online, our programming is called Well on the Web, and we pivoted to online quickly when COVID started. We had already started doing some programs online, and we have, as you'll see, a whole host from group programs. We offer webinars. There's individual support over the phone. On the website are housed a number of sort of self-paced webinars that you can watch at any time and some downloadable resources. And our program roster runs the gamut. So emotional, physical, functional, practical, informational, and social. And I just want to give you a little taste of each bucket of programming. This best starting point, I think, when you come to Wellspring or enter our website, is to connect with one of our peer support volunteers. And that's somebody that has had an experience with cancer and can talk one-on-one with you and provide you with some support and help you navigate to the programs. And we also have coaching for people who have been through treatment, so sort of survivorship coaching, as well as coaching for people with chronic cancers. A number, as you'll see, of support groups, everything from bereavement to our Healing Journey program, to specialized lymphoma, ovarian cancer, pancreatic cancer. So again, some that we offer and offer in collaboration with other organizations. Physical and functional programs. We have an online group exercise program, a really good 4-part cancer-related fatigue program. We have Chi Life and yoga. Informational, we have our Be Well Wednesdays, which are talks on, a number of different topics of interest to cancer patients. We have talks geared towards caregivers, and we have our Nourish program, which has nutritional information. And again, all of our self-paced learning on our website. Money Matters, which is my baby, which is the opportunity to meet one-on-one with a Money Matters case manager to discuss the financial side of a diagnosis. So everything from government and workplace benefit programs to community resources, that type of thing, and then help with returning to work. Brain fog is a very popular program. So if you're experiencing cognitive changes as a result of the cancer itself or treatment or stress, anxiety, it's an 8-week program that teaches you cognitive strategies to improve any brain fog you're experiencing. We have skills and strategies workshops, which are just sort of multi-part series that let you try different types of techniques, everything, as you'll see, from art therapy to journaling to mindfulness. And again, just head to wellspring.ca. Well on the Web will be where you'll find all the online programs, but you'll also see a section where you can click on to find programs that are available in center as well.
Okay, that's fantastic. I mean, so comprehensive, really addressing like A to Z, something for everybody.
Yeah.
Are you holding any in-person these days?
Yes, so there are some in-person programs running at both our Sunnybrook location and in Oakville. So exercises running, Chi Life, relaxation and visualization. So we're slowly, as people get more comfortable coming back into the centers, we're slowly ramping up the programs.
Okay. And is there, Ilene, a monthly calendar that people can access on the site?
So when you go in under the programming, you'll see it's listed by program, and then you can also see a calendar as well. Exactly. So you can search by center or all the online programs.
Okay, wonderful. Very, very, very comprehensive. And again, thanks to community organizations that provide this, because we all know that the medical system is taxed. Yes, there may be social workers on staff, but I know at least in Quebec, it's often that the social workers are really used for more inpatient, inpatient needs and, discharge planning, etc. And you may not have access, or there may be a wait time. So it's nice to know that through, Wellspring and, there's a whole host of other programs, other organizations as well, Gilda's Club, we offer for colorectal patients as well. So this is sort of become the job of community organizations to really help patients and caregivers focus on themselves and sort of, digest the information that they've been given and process it,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, that was a wonderful presentation, Ilene. Really, really took us through the importance of self-care, what it means, what are the barriers, how do we sort of address those barriers, overcoming it. I like the detours. I definitely need to use some of those detours, that's for sure.
I think we all do. Yeah.
We all do.
It's hard, yeah.
It is definitely, and you lose sight. And again, for some reason, the first to go is, the things that you do for yourself. But, at some point that has to change for our own well-being.
Absolutely.
So maybe what we'll do, if you want to stick around a bit, maybe what we'll do is sort of open it up to some questions. If anybody has any questions for Ilene about the presentation or just about self-care in general, please feel free, either, unmute yourself. You don't have to take yourself, you don't have to put the video on, but unmute yourself or put it in the chat. Ilene will be able to, to respond to any of those. So don't be shy.
Don't be shy. And also, if there are, self-care activities that have been pivotal to your cancer journey and helping you deal with the stress, a program you've tried, always good to share with the other people, on the presentation.
Well, that's a great idea. Yeah. Anybody out there have something interesting they want to share with the audience tonight, and maybe we can all kind of walk away with extra tools in our toolkit. Thank you for providing support, Ilene, from one of the attendees. So I'll throw this out there. Does anybody have like a far out ritual, something that without, obviously something that's a little offbeat, something kind of creative that, that they do to relieve stress. I've recently started to enjoy things like paint by numbers.
Oh, wow.
Paint by numbers, kind of fun. Diamond art. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's a wonderful, it's great to have an 11-year-old, but who gets me into all these things. But it's basically just, a canvas that has, sort of a picture with different colors, like these are little tiny gems, and it's very precise. And so, it's not for everybody, of course. If you're experiencing, like a neuropathy, obviously it's going to be difficult. But I find for, focus and concentration, you can't do a lot of it, but it really does help to fine tune that. Will the session be available to view? Yes, it absolutely will. We're recording it, and it will be posted on our site as well, on colorectalcancercanada.com.
It's interesting because, somebody will try, an art therapy class, and they've never done any art ever, and they find like this inner artist. And I see, when I'm in the centers and they're doing an art therapy program, like these incredible things that people do, or drumming, drumming. But we had a drumming program, and people just found it incredibly therapeutic. So again, something completely different than,
what you're used to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Music too, right? Along the theme of drumming. Drumming, it's really like you feel it in your soul, it's the rhythm, but it's also it's that feeling of like the beating the drum. It sort of goes through your body. So it's a really somatic kind of experience.
Yeah.
Singing or humming is also therapeutic. Yeah, that's
Sure.
absolutely true. I think Laura, actually, I'm calling you out here. I'm sorry, but I think you did tapping. You're the one that told me about tapping, right?
Yeah, I was waiting for you to do that.
You're waiting for that. Come on, bring it.
Yeah, that's one of the meditations that I do is it's a form of tapping.
Right.
So I'm not sure if anyone knows what that is, but it's essentially it's a type of meditation where you listen to a script, but you're also like tapping on various points in your on your body throughout the script, and it's supposed to help to process negative emotions. Like you start out sort of focusing on the negative emotions and then gradually move more towards the positive. The one that I use every day, I've been doing it for I think my record now is up to 265 days in a row, is the you are enough script. So reminding yourself that you are enough no matter what situation you're in. So that's definitely, I started doing that before I got diagnosed with cancer, but it's definitely gotten me through some pretty tough days. So yeah.
So Laura, is this like you're speaking, like there's a sort of script that you go through?
Yeah, well,
or
it's like pre-recorded. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's it's run by a guy named Nick Ortner and his sister. But there's a whole website called thetapping-solution.com. And there's you can download the app for free, and there's a bunch of scripts that are free, and then if you're more interested, you can pay a subscription to have access to even more different scripts. Like I said, I focused on the URNF one, but they do challenges every once in a while where they try and encourage people to do it a certain number of days in a row, and yeah, it's yeah,
okay.
definitely.
So it's really sort of detoxifying your body, right?
It's giving yourself a time to detoxify, or to process what you're going through, or like I said, I focus on the URNF script, but there's scripts for every possible scenario you could think of. So I mean, I know they're coming up with July 25th. They're doing a challenge, 5-day challenge for releasing anxiety, I think it was. So that'd be a good time to join if you're interested. So there's prizes too. So they're randomly drawn prizes. So that's always a benefit.
That's a good incentive.
That's
a good incentive.
And I guess since I'm already on camera, I'll throw out the other self-care ideas. Lego is a very good very good self-care.
Show everybody your collection.
Oh my god,
that's only a tiny fraction of
where's the Titanic?
So, it's the other way.
The other way. Okay.
Can't really see it, so it's above my TV. So
incredible.
But yeah. So I mean, it's Lego has been my lifeline throughout this journey as well. So I've even become the Lego lady. So I have I adopted the nickname the Lego lady throughout my chemo journey, and was even made my own name tag out of Lego to take to treatment. So
and you made your gift box, right? That everybody kind of contributed to prior to your surgery. So
that's it definitely has been a journey. So I've got all kinds of fun stories with that. So you can do anything you want with Lego.
You can do anything you want with self-care, right? I mean, it's really whatever sort of speaks to you, and what provides the benefit of, calming you and refocusing, because, that's really what it is, right? Is sort of taking the focus away from, the fear that you're feeling or the anxiety that's building, and it's kind of redirecting that energy elsewhere, and creating a better kind of like harmony in your body.
The other idea I'd throw out for self-care too is taking a time to actually write a letter to somebody. Because people don't do that nowadays.
How novel.
It's there's something to be said about receiving a letter or a card in the mail. So
No, you're absolutely right.
A
Sometimes it's really getting back to basics. Yeah, sorry, Eileen.
And a big one during COVID, especially for support, but I also think it's a form of self-care is pets. I mean,
Oh
just
yeah.
has helped people get through cancer, the pandemic. So I think that's a big one for people.
Yeah, pet therapy. Yeah, that's definitely huge. And sometimes it's also self-care can also be helping others in a positive way, not in sort of like a stressful way, not like making dinner for everybody or hosting a party. I mean, we're talking about like visiting, friendly visiting. I mean, obviously during the pandemic, that's a bit of an issue, but, taking a walk with, a mobile senior, but, a senior who maybe is, a little bit more isolated, doing things like this can be very, can be very fulfilling. Spending time, playing with children, definitely not during the bewitching hour, for sure not, but sitting on the floor, like, playing Lego or playing a board game, and just really immersing yourself in that moment. I find kids are really can be very therapeutic that way because, they're really always in the moment, right? They're not worrying about what happened yesterday or what's going to happen tomorrow. They're really forcing you to kind of be in that moment. So that's another form probably as well. Like I like your suggestion, Eileen, of like, the spiritual one of, getting back to nature. I've spoken to many cancer patients, over time that have felt this way. I know personally I have, which it was a stronger connection to nature after this experience, whatever it is, whether it's because you're facing, I guess, that sort of that great unknown, and then it really ties you to what's around you, to your environment. So hugging a tree, I mean, I remember having a really anxious day one day, and I spoke to a friend of mine who who really knows how to do self-care, and she said to me, go back to that forest that you go to and hug a tree.
Wow.
And I literally, and there's it's I can't explain it. I mean, I know it sounds kind of wacky, but you go and you feel the energy of what's around you, and it really it helps you melt things away.
Yeah.
And it's really that simple. Sometimes is just kind of like getting back to basics.
There's
Absolutely.
also something to be said about even just literally stopping and listening to the birds, because apparently listening to birds helps your mental psyche, like, and become more positive. So, which is pretty
Really,
much something.
birds specifically.
Yeah, birds
Okay.
specifically. I watched a YouTube video on it talking about how birds can actually help with
Oh wow.
depression and
Okay.
anxiety. So, just even if you can literally just open a
Yeah.
window and look for a bird, or or go walk around your neighborhood. I mean, I see all kinds of birds every morning. I go out for my walks, so that's my way of connecting to nature. So. I did, just to change the topic a little bit, I did have a question for you. Do you have any sort of self-care tips for dealing with anxiety and stress with, like difficult tests?
Yeah. So that's a tough one. So a support system is for anxiety is a good one. So if there's somebody that can accompany you to the appointment, again, COVID restrictions aside, if there's somebody that can come or at least drive you there so that you have that little bit of support is good. Having all the information that you want pre-scan. So making sure that you're asking the doctor all the questions about, what the possible results are, what can flow from the possible results. So again, arming yourself with as much information as possible. And then whatever, couple that with whatever relaxation techniques help you. So if that's, when you're in the waiting room, if that's doing some sort of breathing or focusing exercise or listening to music in headphones. So again, the practical side, making sure you're informed, the supportive side, having somebody, if they can't come with you, then at least to pick up the phone that you can call before and after, and then the relaxation piece.
That is good. I guess I'm talking through my own experience, and I'm just gonna throw this out as advice because I've had such a wide range of experiences dealing with the physical side of tests for CT scans with IVs. If you know that you're gonna have trouble with IVs, it really helps to make that very clear when you go in to an appointment, and tell them up front you need someone who has experience dealing with the difficult cases, because it can oftentimes save yourself a lot of headache if you go right to somebody who has more experience, or physical pain, I guess. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So just I guess I'm coming off of my scan last week. That's why I'm thinking of it.
Yeah.
So,
and sometimes it takes a little bit of time for you to, it's exactly what you said. That's so visual coming down from the scan.
Except I got to go back tomorrow. So it's no, but anyway.
And how do you get through it? I mean, what do you do, or you just feel super anxious throughout?
I don't get anxious as much as I used to. I think I try to keep the nurses talking, focusing on sharing my Lego story, basically to get them focused on something positive, to talk to it. I mean, I've had some cases where the nurses just don't want to talk, and that doesn't help.
You're like, don't you realize I'm doing this for me, not for you? Help me out here.
Yeah. But and making it clear, just what I'm sort of expecting, to say, I don't want to see the needles, or I'm closing my eyes, or that kind of thing. I mean, and I say that because I've had nurses actually laughing at me when I close my eyes for these kinds of tests, which is not great. So, so that's why I say I've had a wide range of experiences with these tests. So it's, it is to me, it's an important part of the cancer journey. So, it's, so, you definitely have to find ways, like you said. I like your idea of the music. That's also a good idea too. So,
yeah.
Thank you so much, Laura. Laura's the best sharer. We get great dialogue, great discussions. Laura. Thank you. So we have Deborah, who's asking, and this is awful, and I'm so sorry that this has happened to you, but what do you say to someone who dismisses the fact that you actually have cancer? Somebody told Deborah that God has taken it away from me, and has told me to forget about it. I'm not sure there's much to say to somebody who's in that kind of headspace, but I'll leave it to you to answer, Ilene, if you'd like.
No, I think I'm in full agreement with you, and I share the sentiment. I'm sorry that you had to deal with somebody, making these type of comments. I think this is something that you really don't pursue a conversation with. I think you just sort of, my favorite technique for comments and questions like this is the swivel. So, just say, oh, okay, and then just swivel the conversation, ask the person a question, bring up some entirely different topic, just so they get a clear understanding that you are not interested in pursuing this line of conversation, or just shut it down completely.
I was thinking the swivel is swivel away from them, and
yeah, you can do that. Yes, you can do a physical swivel. Yes, you can do a physical swivel. Yeah, but I think that if that's uncomfortable for you, you should not further engage in
right.
it sounds like yeah, shouldn't further engage.
Yeah. Or you just say thank you for your well wishes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
because I think ultimately, and this was something I faced as well. I'm part of the Jewish community, and when I was going through this, one of my daughters was in nursery, and when I would go pick her up from school, the teachers would say, how you doing? How's it going? How are the treatments? And I say, oh, I'm pulling through, and I'll be okay. I'll get through this. And they would say, if God wants. And I'm like, no, if I want.
Yeah.
I'm like, God doesn't know who he or she is dealing with, right? So, you kind of just, I mean, it used to irk me. So I get you, Deborah. It was just like, no. Like, look, it's not all in everybody else's hands. Like, we're gonna, but there's really not much to say when people have a certain belief.
Yeah.
And I guess people are just well-intentioned, but people don't know what to say often. So you have to kind of say it for them, which isn't always great, but you have to put your boundaries there too. Yeah.
I was
You're
gonna
back,
throw
Laura.
into, yes, you got me thinking. When you were talking about the different types of self-care techniques under the practical category, I would add the idea of creating your own boundaries, especially for things exactly like we were talking about, like sharing, your medical information. Like, it's your story. You decide who gets to hear it and who doesn't. It's not up to everyone else to, you don't have to answer to everyone else. Like, you don't have to tell them when you're going for tests or when you're, I think that's what I've sort of learned talking to other people, that it's, you got to find that balance of, you're not responsible for how everyone else is thinking about your story. It's your story, right? So,
but there really is the need, I think, with a lot of patients, I hear this, to kind of tell your story, because it's part of processing it. And, I liked Eileen's suggestion of journaling, which I've always found to be a really cathartic exercise, which is just, you're feeling a certain way and you need to, ultimately we're all just trying to get it out of our bodies and get it out of our minds. So by writing it out, you're really just kind of, you're releasing the narrative. It's like, here, but like you said, Laura, you don't necessarily want to overshare, because some people aren't going to respond to it the way, they're not going to say what you need them to say. So better to just kind of write it in your book, close it up, share it with a few people if you want, but you have that opportunity to kind of just close it, put it away for a bit, but you've still gotten it out there.
Yeah. Great.
So this has been a really fantastic discussion. It is Sharon. So yes, that's it, Karine, and Sharon support groups, because this is, there's a lot of validation that goes on in these peer support groups. And truthfully, if someone, often people say, what type of support do people want the most? This is a question we get asked a lot. What kind of support are people seeking the most? And it's really peer support, because ultimately people feel a kinship with those who are going through what they're going through. And that is a form of self-care. It's validation. It's giving people, the space and the opportunity to kind of get out what they need to get out in a very, very open forum, but in a very sort of comforting and comfortable space. It's not sort of just, telling just anybody, your group members usually. So sharing and support groups is definitely high on the list. Are there any other questions or comments anybody wants to make before we sort of wrap up? I know we have till 9, but I think we can, if we don't have any other questions, we can definitely start wrapping up. We'll just leave a moment or so for somebody to write something in the chat or kind of up here from behind the curtains. No. Okay. So Ilene, I want to thank you from all of us at CCC for joining, and of course from our audience and those who will continue to see this presentation, because it will live on our website, for really highlighting the importance of self-care, what it means, and and never to neglect ourselves, because ultimately we're all we have. In the end, we need ourselves. So it's really been a pleasure talking with you, and thank you for the wonderful work that you and your Wellspring team do to bring these services and this support to the community. And we hope you'll come back and visit us, and we'll talk other topics.
Absolutely. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. It's been great.
Yeah, it's our pleasure, really. So we will be getting in touch with everybody who has been attending the session tonight to answer just a very short survey about the Tush Talks, and just to get a little bit of feedback, because this is a fairly new venture of ours, and we want to be able to provide the community with topics that are of interest to you, things that are going to engage you and really enhance your lives and those and the lives of those around you. So please take the time, if you can, to fill that out. You'll be getting that in the next few days. And again, this will be recorded, so if you'd like to share it with anybody, it will be on our website, which I put in the chat. And if that's it, then we will sign off from all of us at CCC, thanking you for joining the Tush Talks. Thanks so much, Ilene.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.